Imagine waking up each morning to the muffled sound of snow beneath your feet, surrounded by mountains that seem to have emerged from an ancient dream. A clear sky, deep as a crystal abyss. You take a deep breath and feel the air is cleaner, purer, almost spiritual. Welcome to a parallel reality, the Swiss mountain villages where winter is not a season, it's a way of life. In this journey, you won't just discover what it means to survive and enjoy 6 continuous months of winter. You'll also learn how these communities have turned ice into identity, silence into shelter, and snow into a daily art form. We're not talking about tourist resorts or famous alpine cities. We'll take you to places where cold is a philosophy, slowness is a virtue, and nature is a stern but generous teacher. Swiss, where every season paints a masterpiece. In the beating heart of the Alps, hidden between sky-slicing peaks and valleys that whisper legends, lies the canton of Swiss. But calling it simply a destination falls short. Swiss is not a place you visit, it's a place you breathe, hear, and feel in your bones and soul. It's a living canvas where each season paints with a different palette, but always with the same delicate stroke of untamed nature. For 6 long months, Swiss fully surrenders to winter's embrace. It doesn't fight it nor tolerate it, it celebrates it. Unlike other regions that bunker down against the cold, here winter is a ceremony. Temperatures drop gracefully below freezing, and what others would call inhospitable becomes pure inspiration for the people of Swiss. The world turns white but not empty. Here white has tones, volume, emotion. There are soft whites like clouds, intense whites like old ice, radiant whites like crystals under the sun. The entire landscape becomes a monochrome symphony of ice, blackened wooden cabins, and gray skies that hang like melancholic veils over the mountains. Ski trails are born in the heights and snake gracefully through frost-covered firs and pines, like veins of adrenaline coursing through the mountain's body. From afar, they look like silver threads hand-woven across the snowy surface. But Swiss isn't just for speed lovers. It also offers a slower, more contemplative experience. Carefully marked paths exist for those who prefer to immerse themselves in the landscape on foot, with snowshoes crunching under each step. These trails lead to places where the world seems to pause. A clearing in the woods where silence weighs heavy, a lone cabin with smoke rising from the roof, or a frozen lake mirroring the vastness of the sky. Daily life in Swiss during winter doesn't revolve around frantic work, but around ritual. The ritual of lighting the wood stove at dawn, of preparing steaming hot chocolate in handcrafted ceramic mugs, of watching snowflakes fall in slow motion outside the window. Children glide on sleds built by their grandparents. Families skate on improvised rinks over frozen lakes. Couples lose themselves in evening walks where every breath turns to mist. And then there is the silence. A silence that doesn't frighten or oppress, but caresses. It's so thick it seems to have a body, a white silence that wraps every corner like an invisible blanket. It's not the absence of sound but the full presence of calm. In Swiss, even silence is part of the landscape. It rests on branches, seeps through window cracks, and walks with travelers like a discreet companion. It's a silence that heals, invites introspection, and allows you to listen, not just to your surroundings but to yourself. But Swiss is no frozen postcard. It's a living, breathing territory that transforms with a grace only nature can achieve. When winter retreats, it does so like a curtain falling after a grand performance. Snow-covered fields melt into cascades of wildflowers. White gives way to deep greens and turquoise skies. What once was ice becomes crystalline water flowing through winding streams. Silence gives way to birdsong and buzzing insects. And without having moved, you feel as though you've changed worlds. In every corner of Swiss, winter doesn't freeze life, it reveals it. It's a season that transforms not just the landscape, but those who inhabit it. Here, winter is not the end of something but the beginning of a deeper, more sensory, more connected way of living. And perhaps that is the greatest beauty of this frozen paradise. Zermatt, the Swiss model in miniature. A short distance from the border Switzerland shares with Italy, hidden among snowy hills and majestic peaks, lies a place that seems crafted by artists rather than engineers. It's called Zermatt, and more than a village, it's a masterpiece of alpine tradition. At first glance, it looks like a scale model, a carefully crafted diorama where nothing is out of place. But the moment you pause, you realize Zermatt isn't a simulation, it's perfection made real. The wooden cabins, their facades darkened by winters and centuries, align with a harmony that borders on the impossible. The slanted roofs, blanketed by snow that falls softly, as if nature herself tucked them in with care, protect interiors where the echoes of past generations still resonate. The windows frame postcard-worthy views, but also the daily life of a village that has managed to preserve its essence amid the ever-changing modern world. In Mürren, every house tells a story. Some were built by the great-grandparents of today's residents. Others have been passed down like inherited jewels, with wood that creaks like whispers from the past. Time is measured differently here. Not by clocks but by seasons. By how much snow has piled on the rooftops. By the exact moment when the sun appears between the peaks and bathes the facades in frozen gold. In Mürren, skiing is not an elite sport or a tourist activity. It's part of the everyday language, as natural as breathing. From the youngest children who still struggle with balance to the grandparents who glide down the soft slopes with ancestral grace, everyone is part of a culture that lives in symbiosis with the mountain. Learning isn't reserved for the experts. There are plenty of ski schools designed for those who have never strapped on a board. And most importantly, in this village no one mocks those who fall. Because everyone, absolutely everyone, learned to slide down the same hill, fell on the same curve and got back up under the same white sky. But Mürren isn't just about its snowy slopes. For many, its true charm lies in what happens after skiing, when muscles are sore and the body longs for warmth. That's when Mürren reveals its other face, that of an intimate and cozy refuge where winter is observed from behind a fogged-up window. The village's restaurants, small, family-run, wrapped in the rich scents of food and old wood, are true sensory sanctuaries. There, the meals don't just nourish the body, they comfort the soul. Fondue bubbles slowly at the center of tables, inviting long, slow, necessary conversations. The soups, especially the traditional slow-cooked onion soup, arrive steaming in ceramic bowls that burn your hands but warm your heart. And the wines, the wines. These are not wines you simply drink, you feel them. They travel through you like a soft flame, perfect for accompanying stormy nights. In Mürren, snow is never the enemy. It's a frame, a natural backdrop that enhances every detail of the village. The fires in the chimneys are lit not only out of necessity, but as an act of celebration. The candles on the tables aren't just for light, but to create atmospheres where every gesture becomes more intimate. And the windows, those small openings to the outside world, are not just thermal barriers. They are portals into a frozen, majestic universe best admired with a glass in hand and a blanket over your legs. Mürren is not a place you visit. Mürren is a place you live. It seeps beneath your skin and lingers like a vivid memory that returns every time you close your eyes and hear the crunch of snow. It's the kind of place that doesn't need grand gestures to impress. A lit fireplace, a child laughing as they slide down a hill, or a couple holding hands in front of a fogged-up window, that's all it takes to understand. In this corner of Switzerland, winter doesn't isolate, it unites. It doesn't freeze, it awakens. Grindelwald, white silence in motion. Over 1,000 meters above sea level, where the world begins to speak in another language. The language of wind, of ice, of echoes bouncing between unreachable peaks. Rises Grindelwald, an alpine sanctuary suspended between two times. The deepest stillness and the boldest vitality. In winter, Grindelwald transforms into an impressionist painting drawn by the whimsical hand of snow. Everything is covered in white, but not a flat, monotonous white, rather an infinity of whites that shift with the light and with the silence. The houses, built of wood aged by centuries of cold, seem to float gently atop carpets of freshly fallen snow. Chimneys smoke discreetly. Windows cast warm, soft lights like tiny beacons in the icy dusk. And the paths winding through the valleys fade under the snow, as if wishing to be forgotten for a while. The only thing that breaks this apparent stillness is sound, not the sound of cities or engines or human noise, but of nature itself. The ice cracking under the weight of a boot, the icy whisper of wind playing through centuries-old fir trees, the distant squeak of a sled descending a hill. It's all sound, yet it's also silence. A silence that can be felt, that wraps around you, that weighs like an invisible blanket and invites you to breathe slower, look deeper, live more slowly. But Grindelwald doesn't sleep beneath the snow, it merely changes the rhythm of its dance. For while winter brings stillness, it also awakens a particular energy, almost spiritual, in those who live in or visit it. The ski trails carve through the mountain like frozen lightning bolts. Skiers descend with a near choreographic elegance, drawing lines across untouched snow. Hidden paths wind through forests of fir and larch. perfect for walking alone, as a couple, or in silence, surrounded by an atmosphere that feels straight out of a Nordic tale. There are even trails illuminated at dusk, where the last light of day paints the white surface with gold and turns each step into a mystical experience. And when the day ends, Grindelwald becomes intimate. In its rustic wooden cafes, coffee steam spirals upward and blends with the fog that seeps through the cracks. The terraces of the inns fill with slow conversations, warm blankets, and wine glasses that sweetly fend off the cold. The dim streetlights cast a dreamlike atmosphere. One might say the entire village was designed to remind you that even in the coldest places, warmth exists. That even in the most remote corners there is refuge. But Grindelwald is not just a winter poem. When the ice surrenders its reign and the snow withdraws with the elegance of a curtain at the end of a play, the village is reborn in an explosion of color and vitality. The once white fields turn emerald green. Wildflowers begin to populate the trails, painting the old snowy paths with reds, yellows, and violets. The scent of damp earth and fresh pine fills your lungs. The air becomes lighter, warmer, almost like a caress. The skies turn such a deep shade of blue it feels invented. The mountains, now without their white mantle, reveal their rocky scars, their mineral strength. The streams return, singing their comeback with crystal voices. Life reawakens in every corner. Now it's the hikers, the mountain bikers, the wandering travelers who take hold of the landscape. They walk along flowered trails, climb natural lookout points, bathe in cold but mirror-clear lakes. Grindelwald then becomes something else entirely. A promise of freedom, a place of natural celebration, a stage where each day is unlike the one before. And yet, something remains constant in this cycle of ice and fire, of white and green. Grindelwald's ability to touch something deep within the human soul. A calling to return to the essential, to understand that beauty lies not in complexity but in authenticity. That to live can simply mean to gaze at a mountain for hours, or to share a hot soup in front of a window while the snow falls outside. In this Swiss corner, winter is a silent spectacle that dazzles without noise, and summer is a rebirth that embraces without hurry. Both coexist like two faces of the same truth, that nature follows its own clock, and in aligning with it we discover our own. Pilatus, the guardian of the skies. In the beating heart of central Switzerland, cutting through the sky with a dignity that only eternal giants can possess, rises the imposing Mount Pilatus. At 2,128 meters above sea level, this rocky colossus not only dominates the horizon like a stone fortress, it embodies centuries of legend, myth, and awe. Pilatus is not just a mountain, it is a symbol. A totemic figure that silently observes the comings and goings of time, watching like a stone sentinel over the historic city of Lucerne and the shimmering reflections of its lakes. From below, its jagged and majestic silhouette resembles a sleeping dragon. Not by coincidence, local legends claim that ancient spirits or winged creatures once inhabited its caves. In fact, the name Pilatus comes from the medieval belief that the body of none other than Pontius Pilate was thrown into one of its hidden lakes, carrying a curse that still whispers among the rocks. But beyond the fantastical tales, one thing is certain: Pilatus commands respect, awe, and humility. The adventure to its summit begins long before reaching the top. The paths leading upward are part of the experience themselves, and two main routes exist, seemingly designed for very different spirits. The first, a cable car gliding over chasms, offering increasingly breathtaking views as it climbs gently. The second, more dramatic and for the brave-hearted, the steepest cogwheel railway in the world, an engineering feat that defies gravity on an incline so extreme it seems impossible, and yet it exists. As you ascend, your perspective on the world begins to shift. Houses become tiny dots. Trees shrink into zigzagging green lines. Lakes sparkle like pools of molten glass. The air grows purer, colder, more alive. And once you reach the summit, time stands still. From the top of Pilatus, the landscape becomes something almost supernatural. At your feet, Swiss lakes reflect the light like shattered turquoise mirrors, fragmented by mountains that rise like eternal sculptures. Nearby hills, carpeted in green during warmer months, look like brushstrokes flung by a divine painter onto a canvas of titanic proportions. When snow is present, the contrast is even more intense. Absolute white against blue sky, bare stone against clouds dissolving like foam. Pilatus is not merely a viewpoint. It's a revelation. An epiphany that requires no words. Up there, surrounded by wind, mist, and raw beauty, you don't just observe geography, you reflect on your place in the world. It's impossible not to feel both small and full at once while taking in the vastness stretching in every direction. No number of photos can capture what happens in your chest when you're standing there. And though many come for the views, which are without a doubt spectacular, others return for what can't be seen. The suspended silence, the clarity of mind, the quiet communion with the earth. Some meditate. Others simply sit on the rocks, letting the wind speak to them in a language only understood more than 2,000 meters above sea level. In summer, the mountain bursts with life. Alpine flowers growing in impossible conditions, birds nesting on unreachable cliffs, hikers challenging ancient trails carved by generations past. In winter, Pilatus dons a cloak of absolute white and becomes a kingdom where nature reminds humanity who truly holds the power. Descending from Pilatus is not just a return to lower altitude. It's a return to the world with a different gaze, sharpened senses, and a new scale of what really matters. Because after being that close to the clouds, so high that you can almost touch the silence, you realize that immensity isn't meant to intimidate, it's meant to teach. Termen and Belaup, eternal ice and life without engines. In the quietest depths of the Alpine Canton, where the air is so pure it cuts like crystal and the horizon seems untouched by human time, lie two hidden gems of Switzerland's wildest side, the Termen Glacier and the small remote village of Belaup. These are places where modernity has barely left a trace, where nature isn't admired from a distance, but inhabited, listened to, and revered like an ancient god. The Termen Glacier is not just a mass of ice, it's a living organism. A gigantic ancient tongue that advances and retreats with the calm certainty of the inevitable. Its surface is anything but uniform. It's carved with crevasses, peaks, and edges as sharp as blades of opaque glass. It moves in imperceptible shifts, yes, but its voice can be heard. A deep crack, a dry echo, a groan that seems to come from the earth's core. Your time doesn't pass, it crawls. It settles onto stone with the patience of centuries. Walking near Termen in the summer is a near mystical experience. You can get so close that you see how the ice breathes, how it sweats water in crystalline threads, how it emits primal sounds that remind you this world was created long before we arrived. In winter, Termen transforms. What in summer is an open valley of ice and wonder becomes a white fortress torn from a science fiction novel. The sky sinks lower, the snow thickens, and the silence deepens. The ski trails are not mere tourist routes. They are pathways that cross a sublime, brutal landscape, where each turn reminds you that nature can be beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Here, to slide down the mountain is to dance, a choreography between the human body and a landscape that feels alien. But if Termen represents the icy power of Swiss geography, Belaup is its spiritual counterpart. Just a few kilometers away, this tiny village hides from the world like a well-kept secret. No cars. No roads. No noise. The only way in is via a cable car that slowly ascends through a snowy abyss, and upon reaching the top, delivers visitors into a parallel universe where everything has paused. What you find there isn't just a place, it's a different way of living. Belaup seems built not on ground but on silence. Snow covers every roof with a sculptor's precision. The houses, many centuries old, preserve their original architecture. Dark wooden walls, carved balconies, doors with ancient inscriptions. Inside, the fireplaces do more than heat, they tell stories. Every burning log is a chapter, every spark a memory. Outside, the stars shine like nowhere else. Far from city lights, the night sky in Belaup becomes an ocean of cold fire, a celestial map painted just for those who dare to climb so high and stay so still. At the heart of the village, like an anachronistic jewel, stands the Alitzboard Church, built in 1883. It no longer functions as a traditional temple, but its soul remains untouched. Today, it's one of the most sought-after places for couples who wish to marry in the snow, In the absolute silence, surrounded by mountains that have witnessed everything and judged nothing. There are no golden cathedrals, no red carpets. Only the crunch of snow underfoot, vows whispered between clouds of breath, and a stillness so deep it feels like a blessing. Belalp doesn't offer distractions, it offers connection. There is no constant phone signal, no luxury shopping, no rush. Everything is done slowly and with purpose. Walking is meditation. Cooking is ritual. Sharing a glass of wine is sacred. For some, it might feel too austere. For others, it's exactly what they've been seeking. A place where the outside world no longer matters and where the soul finally has room to breathe. Together, Mürren and Belalp form a perfect balance. The ice that sculpts the earth and the inner fire that warms the soul. The overwhelming power of nature in motion, and the contemplative stillness of a community that has learned to live in harmony with winter. They are two faces of a singular Swiss truth, that sometimes to hear what truly matters, you must go where the noise can't reach you. Matterhorn and Guarda, majesty and frozen art. In the soul of the Swiss Alps, where rock rises to the heavens as a challenge and history is etched into every stone, two places embody the sublime in nature and the grandeur of the human spirit. The Matterhorn, also known as Cervino, and the enchanting village of Guarda. Two very different destinations, yet bound by a shared, unmistakable quality, the sacred. Because there are places on earth that are not merely seen, they are revered. The Matterhorn needs no introduction. Its triangular silhouette, perfect and fierce, has for centuries been a symbol of Switzerland, an image that seems sketched by the hands of gods. It rises alone, proud, like an ancestral totem guarding ancient secrets, bearing witness to glacial memory and human epics alike. Its pyramidal shape, visible from dozens of kilometers away, slices the sky with surgical precision. There is no mountain in the Alps more cinematic, more revered. But its beauty is matched by its danger. Climbing the Matterhorn is not merely an ascent, it is entering a dialogue with death and glory. Since it was first conquered in 1865, over 500 climbers have lost their lives on its slopes. Many fell from impossible ledges. Others froze to death in sudden storms. Every crevice holds a story. Every shadow cast on its walls contains a warning. And yet the pole remains. It is a beauty that does not repel, it hypnotizes. At dawn, when the first rays of sun kiss its face with golden, slanted light, the Matterhorn appears to glow. For a few moments, its summit turns to copper and fire, as if it were breathing. It is in that moment, in the silence between night and day, that one understands why humans keep returning. Not out of recklessness but reverence. Out of an inexplicable desire to touch the untouchable. To belong even briefly to something greater. If the Matterhorn represents the wild majesty of nature, Guarda is the embodiment of its most intimate human side. Nestled in the canton of Graubünden, this small village seems frozen in time, as if trapped inside a snow globe that someone gently shook. But its stillness is not forgetfulness, it is art. Guarda is an open-air museum, a living gallery where every house, every facade, every detail has been shaped with love, heritage, and patience. Its buildings, made of thick stone and decorated with graffiti, are the village's greatest cultural treasure. This centuries-old art form, mixing lime, sand, and natural pigments, adorns walls with symbols, dates, religious phrases, family crests, and scenes from daily life. It is a visual language that conveys identity, memory, and spirituality. Strolling through its cobbled streets is like reading an open book, where the pages are carved in plaster and shadow. Every wall hides a voice, a legacy, a story defying oblivion. When winter arrives, Guarda transforms. The air fills with the scent of burning wood, chimney smoke from dawn, and the mountains surrounding the village embrace it with a protective snowfall. The houses look sculpted from sugar, adorned by frost, as if an invisible artist had covered every corner in snow to preserve it forever. The sound of footsteps is muffled. Time slows. And what remains is a deeply emotional experience. Contact with a community that still lives by the rhythm of the seasons, with respect for the land, for its customs, for its walls. Guarda is not just picturesque, it is architectural poetry. There are no superfluous buildings, no glaring lights, no artificial noise. Everything here is designed, or rather preserved, to harmonize with the natural surroundings. Doors bear hand-carved inscriptions. Small windows, framed in thick wood, let in just enough light to illuminate without wounding. And if you look closely, you might see village children drawing angels in the snow, or an elderly man carefully cleaning the bench in front of his house, perhaps waiting for a conversation, a ray of sun, a memory. Thus, while the Matterhorn reminds us how insignificant we can be in the face of the earth's grandeur, Guarda teaches us that beauty is not always in height or epicness, but in the details that resist the passage of time. One is vertigo, the other rootedness. One commands respect with its sublime brutality, the other wins hearts with its frozen tenderness. Together, they form a mirror of alpine identity, a village that honors its roots and a mountain that challenges the limits of the human soul. If you truly want to understand what Switzerland is beyond tourist clichés, it's enough to watch the silhouette of the Matterhorn at dawn, and then walk in silence through Guarda's white streets at dusk. Bergün and Soglio, adventure and landscapes that inspired art. In the deep valleys of Graubünden, where winter not only covers the land but awakens dormant emotions, two places display the perfect contrast between the euphoria of adventure and the serenity of the soul. Bergün and Soglio. Each, in its own way, connects to something primal within us, the need to feel, whether at full speed or in absolute silence. In Bergün, excitement has a name and a tradition: sledding. Each year, during the coldest months, hundreds of travelers of all ages gather at the small station in Preda with one goal: to launch themselves down one of Switzerland's longest and most iconic sledding trails. It's over 6 kilometers of pure adrenaline, where curves come with surgical precision, the wind cuts the face like a blade, and the landscape, a corridor of snow-covered trees, frozen streams, and white slopes, feels animated by velocity itself. But it's not reckless adventure, it's a ritual. Families descend laughing, young people race with thrill, elders do it with the grace of someone who knows every curve like an old friend. It's communion with the mountain, and with childhood, with that part of us that still shouts with joy when we gain a little speed on the snow. In Bergün, nothing is simpler or more sublime than letting yourself go downhill and surrendering to the vertigo of the moment. And then comes Soglio, the perfect antithesis. Where Bergün accelerates the heart, Soglio invites it to beat slower. Known by many as the gateway to paradise, this small village seems suspended in a parallel dimension where time doesn't pass, it breathes. The stone houses with sloping roofs endure the centuries like bastions of the alpine soul. Wooden balconies, adorned in summer with flowers and in winter with icicles, creak under the weight of history. From every corner of the village, there are privileged views of the Bregaglia Massif, a range of jagged peaks and eternal snow that shifts in color with the sun's path. It's no wonder that artists like Giovanni Segantini, master of alpine symbolism, found their muse here. Every sunrise in Soglio is a moving painting. The sky ignites, the mountains turn gold, the clouds unravel, and the entire village appears to float above the mist. Soglio doesn't seek to entertain, it seeks to move. Its narrow, cobbled streets are in no rush. Its residents are not detached from the world, but they live at a different rhythm. Here one learns to look, to listen, to value the small things. Instead of sleds, there are benches facing the mountain. Instead of adrenaline, introspection. Because sometimes the greatest adventure is to stop and watch how the light lands on a closed window. And that's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, activating the notification bell so you don't miss more videos like this one. We'll see you next time.